Ladyman, football editor at the Daily Mail. Welcome on to you both, gents. We'll speak to you shortly. Let's just quickly run you through the back pages. The Sun leads with 40 million rash dash. The detail that Aston Villa do not have first option for the striker this summer. There are also stories on Ruben Amorim, on Manchester United's players competing for Europa League final places, and Erling Haaland's take on Manchester City's season. The Times, meanwhile, covers a story that we brought you earlier, namely the walkout from European delegates at the FIFA Congress after Gianni Infantino arrived late. Debbie Hewitt, chair of FA, was amongst those to make that gesture. They also cover Jeremie Frimpong's imminent move to Liverpool. Telegraph Sports section also covers Frimpong, and they show Rory McIlroy looking frustrated after his difficult first day at the PGA Championship, 3 over par for the Masters champion. And also, Ian's column in the Mail covers Chelsea, and it asks if they can really expect to hold on to Cole Palmer if there's yet another season at Stamford Bridge without Champions League football. Also news a rule review on offside flags after that alarming injury to Taiwo Awoniyi when he collided with a post in Nottingham Forest 2-2 draw with Leicester City. Welcome once again to Jonathan and to Ian. Let's start off with the transfer window. Remember that it's a kind of a split window, isn't it? The first window opens on June the 1st, then it pauses, then it reopens. Life never dull in transfers, and this has just made it a little bit more complicated. Let's talk about Jeremie Frimpong. Yesterday on the show, we were talking about Florian Wirtz and Arne Slot supposedly flirting with maybe the idea of getting in the race to sign the Bayer Leverkusen striker. It's a different Bayer Leverkusen player. And Jonathan, it looks like he's not flirting. He's already swiped right. He's already convinced, and he wants this player.
Yeah, very different feel to the rumours coming around Wirtz, which seems to be, I think, mostly coming from the German side, and the stuff coming out about Frimpong, which seems to be coming from the Merseyside end of things, which I think suggests that, given the history, that Liverpool are probably a little bit more confident about making this deal stick with Frimpong than they are with Wirtz. I think it's an incredibly bold transfer. I really do. Frimpong is a fantastic player. I watched him a lot with Leverkusen when I was living in Germany, and he's a very attacking fullback. He's to the point where, it's legitimate to ask whether he's actually a defender. He's played wing back for Leverkusen. He's actually played right wing for Holland at times in the last year or two. And I think the reason it's so bold is because Liverpool already have Conor Bradley who can play there. They have Gerald Quansah who can play there. They have Curtis Jones who can cover there. And I think for people that thought that the departure of Trent Alexander-Arnold was going to necessitate a kind of a shift in style, in the way Liverpool played, it's essentially, played through their fullbacks. I think that the fact they're pursuing Frimpong suggests that they're actually not going to compromise that style, and they're actually going to double down on it.
How much value do we attach to the Dutch link here, Ian, given not just Arne Slot, of course, but also Virgil van Dijk, Cody Gakpo, Ryan Gravenberch? It seems like it's a really nice fit, isn't it, for Frimpong?
Yeah, I don't think there's any surprise that a Dutch coach would like to sign a Dutch player who he no doubt knows. Interesting analysis that from Jonathan. Understand exactly where he's coming from. I think for me, it's about depth. It's depth really that wins league titles. Arsenal have suffered in that regard this season. Liverpool have benefited. Jonathan mentioned their player like Quansah, talented player, arguably gone backwards this season. Conor Bradley has suffered some injuries. Talented player. Can he play a whole Premier League season and a Champions League season? Possibly not. We don't know. And I think you then try and sign a player who offers you something different, horses for courses and all that, depending on opposition. I think Liverpool fans will be absolutely delighted. They'll be delighted to see that there's some attacking intent shown in this signing. They'll also be delighted that this is indicative of a club that knows what it's doing. This season hasn't even finished yet. The camera has hardly yet stopped rolling on Trent Alexander-Arnold's farewell speech, and they're already halfway to getting a replacement through the door. That gives them time to prepare properly. It gives him a pre-season. He's a good age. He's 24 years of age. I think for me, it ticks most of the boxes. No guarantees in football, absolutely, particularly with players coming to the Premier League. But if I was a Liverpool supporter, a Liverpool follower, I'd be quite comfortable with this transfer.
I mentioned, Jonathan, about this being the first part of the transfer window. And of course, Liverpool not involved in the Club World Cup because it's Chelsea and Manchester City who are the Premier League clubs involved. Do you feel this is an opportunity for Liverpool, not just with this transfer, but with others, to get their business done early, almost strike a psychological blow because they are the champions? They're like, we're strengthening when we're strong. So, we're in pole position here. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, you totally said it in terms of getting your business done early. It's become a little bit of a cliche almost. But I think the fact is for certain coaches, for most coaches, in fact, for most regimes, they want new players to come in and almost integrate themselves into the existing style. Most elite teams these days play with such a bespoke style, such a bespoke set of principles and values and patterns of play that it almost makes it a lot tougher for a player to come in at the end of August, perhaps when the season's already started, and integrate themselves into that team. You see what happened with Federico Chiesa, who came in really late in the window, and basically, as Slot said, he was playing catch up the whole season and never quite managed it because Liverpool, in those kind of July, August pre-season weeks, were drilling their patterns of play to an extent that even a player as talented and gifted as Chiesa wasn't able to catch up to the demands, the tactical and the physical demands that were available. So yeah, there was a big opportunity there, not just in terms of not playing the Club World Cup and having that extra time to work on the training pitch, but in terms of getting players in and then managing to inculcate them into the style that Liverpool want them to play them in.
I guess a manager who's already got a player in that maybe he'd like to keep is Unai Emery, but back page of the Sun, £40 million rash dash, and the news and the development that Aston Villa don't have first refusal. Again, they've agreed that they can buy him for £40 million, but it doesn't stop other clubs coming in with offers, Ian.
I don't think it really does, with the greatest respect to Martin Blackburn, who's written that story. In terms of what may happen with Marcus, I've got reservations about the market for Marcus Rashford. I've had them for a while. I think he's done well at Villa without getting overexcited about it. I think he's done well. 7.5 out of 10. I don't think it's a 9 out of 10. Got himself back in the England squad, but he earns very, very good wages at Manchester United that we know. He won't want to take a substantial cut on those wages. He's a human being. After all, he will know what I'm not sure there'll be enough headroom financially for them in terms of PSR and all the rest of it. If they don't take him, who takes him? Where's the market for Marcus Rashford in an age when clubs have only got so much money to spend, especially in this country? Who is going to put their hand up and say, yeah, okay, this is a player who has done okay in a few months at Villa, but prior to that has had a very quiet time at Manchester United? Question marks, rightly or wrongly, about the way he's applied himself under the last two Manchester United managers. Who puts their hand up for that? So it's going to be a very difficult one. He's done himself no harm in this little shop window period at Villa Park, but I think there's still work to be done to get him out of Manchester United. I wouldn't be surprised if United were amenable. I wouldn't be surprised if it were another loan, Marcus Rashford's next move.
Yeah, what do you think, Jonathan? Where does his future lie immediately?
Yeah, I genuinely couldn't disagree with. So I couldn't agree with more of that. For me, and to be honest, I think the fact that he's on reportedly £365,000 a week, that United are obviously subsidising part of his wages. They would have to subsidise, again, a similar amount, possibly even more, were he to move to another club next season. And that might, because of United's financial issues, might get folded into any transfer fee that United would demand. If Villa don't take him, and I agree, he's played well, he's shown glimpses, he's shown potential of what he can be, but I think it's 2 league goals in the second half of the season. It's good, but it's not a comprehensive case for a team taking him on. And if Villa don't take him on, I'm not immediately certain which club does. I think that the noise is coming out of the camp that he doesn't want to move to a London team. Okay, fair enough. Barcelona don't need him. PSG don't need him right now. So in terms of the elite clubs that could afford wages of that capacity, I think the fact that the Rashford camp are putting this out at this juncture suggests that the market for him is actually closing and not widening.
Okay, what about the manager who appears to have made his decision, his mind up on Marcus Rashford? That is Ruben Amorim. Let's go back to the back page of The Sun. It's on the left-hand side there. Amorim warns of final cut. Ian, what do you make of his declarations and declamations over the last couple of days? Because it's been quite confusing. It hasn't been consistent. And he says that, he hasn't picked his 11 for the final and that the next game is the most important game. And, he wants to see who performs well against Chelsea. But admittedly, not being funny here, but the most important game is the Europa League final, isn't it, surely? I mean, how can you make an argument against that?
It absolutely is. In fact, the two fixtures, Premier League fixtures tomorrow night, of course, Villa playing Tottenham and Chelsea playing Man United, are two remarkable fixtures, really, given that there's a team in each game, namely the two home teams, Villa and Chelsea, who desperately need to win these games to further their own hopes of qualifying for the Champions League, and the two away teams who really don't need to win at all. All they need to do is avoid injury. Their league seasons almost cannot get any worse. So what Amorim needs is a clean bill of health, and he needs some kind of performance that will give him a chance not to have to sit in a press conference and talk about how bad his team is, which will make a change for him. And also some kind of performance that might build some kind of momentum ahead of the game in Bilbao next Wednesday. Because as we know in sport, whichever sport you play, whatever level, confidence, belief, momentum, everything. Tottenham and Manchester United have zero of that. They have none of that at all. Have you ever known two managers approach a European final in such a downbeat, negative way? Have you ever heard managers ask the questions they're being asked ahead of a European final? This is opportunity that knocks for these two managers, and the two of them are talking as if they're about to walk off the edge of a ship in the middle of the ocean, which one or both of them may well be, metaphorically speaking, in a week's time. But you know where I'm coming from. It's an almost unprecedented situation. If I was Ruben Amorim, if I was Ange Postecoglou, I'd pick my best team. I'd pick my strongest team, trust them to get through the game, trust them to perform, and take some of that into Bilbao next Wednesday.
All right. We've got through a decent number of stories there in part one of the show. Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan and Ian. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're looking at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Mirror. The injury suffered by Nottingham Forest striker Taiwo Awoniyi comes under the spotlight. Could it prompt a rule change? We're back in a couple of minutes. Watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to Jonathan, new sports writer for The Guardian, and Ian Ladyman, football editor for the Daily Mail. Ian, let's come to you first on your column in the Mail. The headline: if Chelsea slip in their bid to reach the Champions League, Cole Palmer will surely start to get itchy feet. So Chelsea finished 6th. Is he off? Explain.
No, I don't think he's off. He's tied to a very, very long contract. But my thought process here this morning, when you think about a column to write, I was thinking about what we were talking about just before the break, Ruben Amorim, Postecoglou, what a huge week it is for them in terms of trying to get into the Champions League. And it just took me to thinking about Cole Palmer. Chelsea have got two games, as we've already discussed. United Friday night, Forest on the final game of the season away. If Chelsea were not to qualify for the Champions League, and it is very tight at the top at the moment, that would be 3 seasons running for Cole Palmer without Champions League football. He's 23 years old. He's what we like to describe as a generational talent. He is a superstar. Left Manchester City two summers ago, or 2 seasons ago, to further himself, to improve himself, and to win things. And because the road into the Manchester City first team was blocked by people like Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish and others. That City midfield is now absolutely wide open. And it just makes you think that had he stayed at Manchester City, Pep Guardiola may now have been sitting there this summer, preparing to build his midfield around him. Just shows how quickly things can change in football. I don't think Palmer's going to be leaving Chelsea anytime soon. How can he? They may well qualify for the Champions League. If they do, onwards and upwards, perhaps. But it just makes you think that we spent a lot of time wondering whether City were right to let him go. I'm just sitting here this evening, wondering whether Palmer was right to go in the first place.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, though, isn't it? And at the bottom of the page in your column, Ian, let's go to Jonathan. Carried on careering forward, and ultimately, I think it was a ruptured intestine abdominal surgery and placed in an induced coma. Where do you sit on this? This is now gathering pace, this story today, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think that I wasn't expecting this issue to come to the fore in this way, with what I think most people would regard as a freak injury in freakish circumstances. But I think it does raise a wider issue as to basically, because of the new VAR conventions that players essentially allowed to continue for sometimes 20, 30 seconds after an assistant deems an offside. It can go to several more phases of play before the flag is raised. And what you essentially have in that period is dead football. It's non-existent football. Everyone's watching. Or the crowd have paid for it, but it doesn't exist. It can get scrubbed out with the raising of the flag. And in that period of time, given the intensity, given the amount of short burst sprinting and contact that occurs at the highest level of the game, there is always going to be the potential for something to happen in those 20 or 30 seconds that is, deleterious, catastrophic. That changes the game in ways that were not remotely intended when this convention was applied. And I think the injury to our knee, as regrettable as it is, I think it raises a much larger issue in that I think football has been. It's kind of weird to phrase this. I think it's been content to treat players as literally just paid performers who you play to the whistle and you would and it's more than that. If players are flogging their guts out and risking injury for football that doesn't strictly exist, I think a line has been crossed there in terms of the contract that we make as a game and as spectators to the people who are putting their bodies on their line.
Yeah, and in an increasingly congested calendar and schedule as well, Jonathan, although that's a different point. Just back on this story and in the Mirror, top right.
What surprises me about this, or probably what shouldn't surprise me about this, is that it's taken this incident to get people jumping up and down. Those of us who go to watch football matches as often as Jonathan and I do have been waiting for this to happen. As regrettable as that sounds, we've been waiting for this to happen. This was always going to happen at some point, because you also, although it wasn't the case in this incident, you also get that very strange physical happening of players who kind of know that the player is about to be stopped and therefore start going into tackles and challenges in half-hearted ways, which in itself is dangerous. That isn't what happened on this occasion, but that is another danger. Honestly, I was with the Nottingham Forest fullback Ola Aina yesterday for an interview, and I asked him about this, and he said to me, the rules should be the way it used to be. He said, I was 30 yards behind play, and it was obvious to me that Anthony Elanga was offside. He said, I think the quote was, everyone in the world could see that he was offside. And that is where this rule is not fit for purpose. It's not marginal. It was clear. It's not Sean Massey's fault, the assistant referee. She's following instructions. But ultimately, when it's as clear as that, the flag should go up. This doesn't happen.
Let's move on to a story in the Times. And the headline is Late Infantino humiliated by FIFA walkout. So Gianni Infantino, Jonathan, has been with the US President Donald Trump, and then as a result of that trip, delayed arrival in Paraguay for FIFA Congress, and then particularly European nations represented there decided to walk out. How significant a move do you think that is?
Yeah, it's weird that, obviously this growing rift between FIFA and UEFA over who runs the game, who has the power in football, has been it's been brewing for a while, over a decade, 2 decades perhaps. And sometimes it takes something really, really trivial to trigger it. And that appears to be what's happened here. There is no doubt that Infantino, he was 2 hours late, but he could have made the start of the FIFA Congress if he'd really wanted to. The fact that he wasn't there is a calculated snub. And I think the reaction of some of the European federations, including the FA, including the Norwegian FA, a lot of the European federations, I think it speaks to the fact that there is a growing dissatisfaction with the way Infantino has been running the game and a growing urge to actually do something about it, to take action. We've seen this clash with the FIFA Club World Cup, which is FIFA's attempt to kind of almost get a piece of the club game for themselves. And I think at a time when the issues in the game are as pressing as ever, the fact that there is this rift between two of the biggest powers in the game it's just not great for the governance of the sport.
Just really briefly, because we've only got about 30 seconds, one element that's been raised at FIFA Congress, the idea of a 64-team 2030 World Cup. What do you make of it?
Well, yeah, I had a quick Google earlier. I think there are 195 countries in the world. So there we go. We are getting to that point now where it soon will be harder not to qualify for the World Cup than it will be to qualify. Infantino gets away with things because he's allowed to. If you let people bully you in life, they will bully you. He's a bully and he bullies people. And FIFA push people around. They impose bloated tournaments on us, tournaments that people don't really want, tournaments that players don't want. I'm glad that people have decided to stand up for him for once. Now I'll wait for them for the moment they stand up to him over something that really, really matters.
Yeah, well, he said, my responsibility is to make decisions in the interest of the organisation. Well, there we are. Jonathan and Ian, thank you very much indeed. If you missed any of the show, then there's another chance to see Backpages tonight, 1:30 the hour. The show also available as a podcast. Just download Backpages on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods.